Do you enjoy science fiction movies where people have to deal with their own nature on cold, otherworldly worlds? That's great. You must know Rutger Hauer, who is one of the coolest icons in this area. Hauer wasn't just an actor, he was tall, blonde, and had eyes that looked like blades cutting through fog. He was freedom, defiance, and a deep, aching sadness that only humans can feel, something that only people who have stood on the edge of life can really understand. From his famous part as Roy Batty in Blade Runner, to his solo trips across the Australian desert in a trailer he built himself, Rutger Hauer's life wasn't like most Hollywood stories. It was a journey where no bounds were set, where people fought and burned bright until the very end. The Dutch county of Utrecht was occupied by Germany during World War II, when Rutger Hauer was born on January 23, 1944. He said in an interview in 1981, "I was born during the war, and I think that's why I have deep roots in pacifism. I'm scared of violence." The Winky, Mellema, and Arent Hauer were his parents. They were all artists and ran an acting school near Amsterdam. They were Rutger's three sisters. He said that his parents weren't very interested in their kids because they were busy with their art jobs. He wasn't very close to his dad. When Rutger met writer Eric Hasselhoff-Roy, Rolf Zima, while making Soldier of Orange, he became like a father to him. Rutger's parents put him in the Rudolf Steiner School so that he could develop his talents. But when he was 15, he quit school to join the Dutch Merchant Navy and sailed around the world for a year on a ship. He had to give up on his dream of becoming a captain early because he was born colorblind and couldn't do work that needed him to tell the difference between colors. When Rutger got back home, he did a few odd jobs and went to night school to finish his high school education. He then signed up to become an actor at the Academy for Theater and Dance in Amsterdam. He did not finish his studies, though, because he chose to join the Royal Netherlands Army. As a soldier, Rutger learned how to be a battlefield medic, but after only a few months, he quit because he didn't agree with using deadly weapons. He went back to acting school after getting out of the army and finished in 1967. Early on, Rutger Hauer made it to the stage. He first saw the boards when he was 11 years old, when he played Euryzakides in the play AJ. He joined the toneel group Noorder Compagnie Theater Troupe after graduating from the Academy for Theater and Dance in Amsterdam in 1967, though, and that was the start of his real career, and performed on stage for 5 years. During this time, he not only learned the skill, but he also developed a unique language that he could use to communicate through his eyes, gestures, and silence. This weapon would become his signature on screen. He went through his first big change in 1969. Hauer was given the lead part in the TV show Floris by director Paul Verhoeven, a medieval epic action story. In the Netherlands, Floris was a huge hit, and Rutger Hauer became a national star overnight. Because people liked the character so much, he played it again in the 1975 German remake Floris von Rosemund. But Howard never thought that success at home was enough. In 1973, Verhoeven chose him again for the lead part in Turkish Delight, this time in Turk's Fruit. The movie had a big effect. It got Howard nominated for an Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film and helped him become known all over the world. Howard showed all of his emotional range as Eric, an honest, instinctual artist who loved deeply but also felt deeply hopeless. Wild and tough at the same time. Turkish Delight showed that he was more than just a good-looking character. He also had a lot of emotional depth. With this success under his belt, Howard began to look for work in other countries. His first English-language movie, The Wilby Conspiracy, came out in 1975. It starred Michael Caine and Sidney Poitier. The movie was a political drama set in apartheid-era South Africa, but Hauer's small part didn't get much attention in Hollywood, so he kept working on his job in Europe. Many artists might have given up, but Howard quietly got ready for a bigger step. He created his own travel trailer, not for fun, but so he could live on the go and be ready to take advantage of any chance, anywhere. That trailer did more than just carry things. As Rutger Hauer lived his life, it became a real statement of his desire for freedom and self-determination. "I made my own door instead of waiting for Hollywood to open one for me." He used this self-made trailer as a mobile home where he could live, write, and get away from the chaos of the movie business. It took him across Europe and then to America. While waiting for a break in other countries, Hauer kept making great movies in the Netherlands to boost his image. In 1975, Katie Tipple. When Hauer worked with Verhoeven again, he played characters who had to deal with social injustices. His playing style became more realistic and gritty as the projects went on. Soldier of Orange, in 1977, in one of the best Dutch horror movies, Hauer played a man who was pulled between his morals and his need to stay alive. This is the kind of complicated role he would later do so well in Hollywood. 1980 by Spetters. Very controversial movie because it shows sexuality, desire, and the decline of society in a very honest way. Hauer's part in Speeders showed that he was willing to take on projects that went against what the market thought it should be like. This added to the idea that he was a determined artist. He worked with actor Jeroen Krabbe a lot on many of these movies. Together, they were a dynamic duo that helped shape a new crop of Dutch actors. Rutger Hauer's first big movie role was in the action movie Nighthawks, which came out in 1981, starring Sylvester Stallone. It wasn't an easy start. Most of the movie was shot at night. The timeline was very tight. Hau also learned that both his mother and his best friend had died while he was being filmed. He almost quit his Hollywood job before it even started because of his own grief and the harsh realities of the American film industry, but fate had something more important planned for him. When Ridley Scott cast Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty in Blade Runner in 1982, he gave Hauer the chance to become a movie star that will never be forgotten. Blade Runner is based on Philip K. Dick's book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? It takes place in a dark future, where replicants, biologically produced beings that are almost identical to humans, are made to do hard, dangerous work for people. To keep the replicants under control, their creators made sure they couldn't form emotions from birth and limited their lives to 4 years to stop them from rebelling. Roy Batty, Hau's character, is a Nexus 6 replicant that Dr. Tyrell made on January 8, 2016, to be a combat soldier for military operations that take place outside of Earth. After years of living in a world of war and death, Roy starts to feel things, especially a deep fear of death, which has never happened to a newly made replicant before. This fear is what makes Roy and 4 other replicants want to break away. They have one goal: to find a way to live longer. They kill 23 people in an off-world village, take over a spaceship, and then come back to Earth. At the very first reading of the story, Rutger Hauer knew that Roy Batty could not just be a killer. Hauer saw Batty as a living contradiction. He was a very strong fighter, but his soul was also like a child's, shaking before it was destroyed. Hauer put everything he had learned on stage into the role: heartbreaking silences, eyes heavy with thought and fear, and moves that are both awkward and strong. It felt like a young soul was getting used to being in its own body. Roy Batty wasn't just a bad guy when Rutger Hauer played him. Batty became the emotional center of Blade Runner because of him. He became a symbol of the strong will to live and the spark of humanity in a world that had lost its kindness for a long time. The last scene is the best part of this portrayal. Roy could have gotten back at Rick Deckard for killing his lover, Pris. Instead, he stops Deckard from falling off a roof and saves him. Roy sits down in the cold rain and holds a white dove at that very moment. Rutger Hauer rewrote the whole monologue himself the night before shooting that scene because he thought the first lines were too stiff. He added what would become some of the most famous lines in movie history, leaving only 2 short lines. Those times will never come back. Like rain and tears? There is no music. There aren't any fancy effects. Sounds of rain hitting a broken roof, blurred eyes, and a low voice. That moment not only made Roy Batty right, it made Blade Runner right too. The speech from Tears in the Rain is one of the most famous lines in movie history. Ridley Scott later said that Blade Runner might not have been a success without Hauer, and that last scene, Blade Runner, did more than just make Roy Batty seem like a person. The movie showed how replicants who lived long enough to feel real feeling became independent individuals. Roy Batty and Pris were more than just rebellious friends. They were tied together by a deep love, which is something their makers didn't expect. Roy's main reason for wanting to live forever was his love for Pris. Roy was very sad when Pris died. He could have been blindly angry, but he decided to save Deckard's life. In this act, Roy made Deckard and all of humanity see that replicants were not just tools, but living things with feelings, rights, and the ability to live fully as humans do. Roy's death was a very sad event. He died calmly and sent a white dove into the gray, rainy sky as a way for his soul to merge with nature. It was a song about memories that are fragile but last a lifetime, about how short and valuable life is, even for machines. The movie Blade Runner wasn't well accepted when it came out. Some people said the movie was too slow, too dark, and too philosophical. It almost went away forever because it didn't do well at the box office. But as time went on, Blade Runner was looked at again and became an important part of the cyberpunk genre, giving movies around the world a whole new look. Roy Batty became a symbol for restless souls through Rutger Hauer's performance as him. Wishing for Life, Wishing for Freedom, and Beautiful Even in Tragedy made just over $26 million, 0 cents in ticket sales in the United States, which was just about enough to cover the film's costs. A lot of reviewers said the movie was too heavy, too cold, beautiful to look at, but emotionally empty. Warner Brothers messed up the story because they thought people wouldn't understand it. They made Ridley Scott add Deckard's internal conversations and even changed the ending so that Deckard and Rachel escaped together in a shaky, happy ending. Hauer and Scott both didn't like these changes, but they couldn't stop them at the time. During that time of sadness, Blade Runner quietly pulled out of theaters, joining the many other summer projects that didn't do well. At the time, no one could have imagined that this movie, with its cold, bright lights, never-ending rain, and haunting question of what makes us human, would change the way science fiction movies look and what they mean for the next 30 years. People didn't really like Blade Runner until the director's cut came out in the 1990s. This version got rid of the voiceover and restored the movie's original sad ending. They saw that the movie hadn't failed just because it was bad. It didn't work because it came out before its time. Of course, Roy Batty had killed someone, so he was a bad guy in the eyes of the law. Roy's greatest desire to live and love, along with his hopelessness before death, made him more of a tragic figure than a bad one. He was the most painful example of how unfair it is that the world made beings with feelings, but then didn't give them the right to exist. Roy Batty was not only Rutger Hauer's big break, it was also the time he made his mark on movie history by creating a character type that had never been seen before. In every part he played after that, from Lady Hawk to The Hitcher, from Sin City to Hobo with a Shotgun, he was like Roy Batty, alone, rebellious, and compassionate in the dark, but silent. Blade Runner changed more than just science fiction. It also made Rutger Hauer a global hero, going from being a European star to having sad eyes that wanted to live forever, like tears in the rain. As the 1980s began, Rutger Hauer continued to grow in popularity by playing a wide range of parts, from good guys to bad guys, and from noble knights to rebellious souls. In 1985, he played the knight Navarre in the fantasy tale Lady Hawk. Navarre was cursed to spend his life apart from the woman he loved. The movies were shot in the cold, hilly areas of France and Italy. Hauer and others often had to ride horses over dangerous terrain while carrying armor that weighed more than 20 kilograms. It's interesting that Hauer fell in love with the big, stubborn horse he rode in the movie. He even tried to buy it after filming was over. But Goliath had already been hired for other jobs, so his offer was turned down. That little thing perfectly showed the spirit of Navarre that Hauer was, a man of honor, strength, and deep feeling. The next year in 1986, Hauer made a big impact again with The Hitcher, in which he played John Ryder, a killer hitchhiker. Hauer didn't want to take half-hearted safety precautions, so he did most of the risky stunts himself, including scenes where he drove fast without a stunt double. Hauer stands alone on a deserted highway in the middle of nowhere in one of the movie's most memorable scenes. This part of the scene wasn't in the original plot. It was Hauer's idea right before shooting, and he had a simple but clear reason for it. Without a reason, he should look like death. That harsh choice made for a scary moment that will go down in the history of 1980s horror movies. Rutger Hauer pushed himself again in 1989 when he played Nick Parker in Blind Fury. Parker is a blind warrior who protects others with a sword. In order to get ready for the part, he trained with Japanese masters for 3 months in swordsmanship and practiced moving and fighting while wearing blindfolds. During some action scenes, Hauer really couldn't see, but he still did difficult moves without using a stunt double. "When you can't see, you have to feel," he once said about it. "It changed the way I act, in every way."